Good morning. We are continuing the discussion on training of neural networks, taking the help of slides from Professor Fifi Lee team. In the previous class, we have discussed about the role of activation functions, the choice of activation functions for effective training. And we also discussed about how the input has to be presented to the network and how the weights are to be initialized so that the learning happens not just at the initial layers and each of the weights at different layers can be effectively be utilized in learning the mapping between the input and output that we expect. We have seen that while data pre-processing or input presenting the input to the network, we have seen that the centering is an effective step that we do, that's demeaning, and data normalization is also often employed. So data normalization being the variance across different directions, we will normalize to same, so that actually each features are at same scale, especially when the features are of completely different scale, we do that. And we also have seen that it effectively helps in putting the decision boundaries and whitening and other PCA based or decorrelation based pre-processing techniques. We often do not use, but they can also be used based on the necessity. Okay, few things that we didn't discuss before are how do we understand whether the network is learning effectively or not. So that we will discuss a little bit, and then we will further move on to further discussion on batch normalization, which is very important step, not just in neural networks, feed-forward neural networks, but also in convolutional neural networks. After discussion on batch normalization in this lecture, we will discuss on few aspects of training, setting, how do we set the learning parameter, and what is the optimization functions we use. Some such discussions we will have in this lecture. Okay, so let me take a little bit of notes here. So let's start our discussion with how the learning should be. Say, assume that we are set with initialization. So we have seen in the previous discussion that if we have feed-forward neural network, let us start with feed-forward neural network itself. Then subsequently we will discuss on the convolutional neural network. Okay. So quickly try to answer whichever you know. So assume that we are asked to program or learn a neural network. Given the discussion that we had, tell me very quickly, okay, what's the initial steps we should take on? How the learning process happens? Yeah, one point from each of you is expected. Quickly you can tell. What is the first step given a neural network? So for example, we are given some data, xk. Okay, where k equal to say 1 to 60,000. Okay, assume that we have a scenario, something like learning from CFAR. Okay, 10 data. That is 10 classes. That means we have actually images, each of the images given, but since we are giving to feed-forward neural network, this image we may probably put it as here as a one dimension. Okay, we extract some features of it, features of the image, and whatever this be 32 cross, okay, 32 cross 3. This is the dimension, this whole thing. So 3720 or something will come. Okay, so whatever. So into cross 1. This is the dimension 72 or 3072 or something. Okay, cross 1. This is the dimension we have for the input. This is X. Okay, then what do you suggest? How should we go about in training this neural network? And we have here labels ranging from 10 classes, right? So C1 to C10. Yeah, this is the scenario. Now you tell. What is the first step? What is the second step? And what we should observe? Okay, third step, and so on. Yeah, please tell now. Yeah, Bhavana, you want to tell something?
Should initialize the weights.
Very good. So we should initialize the weights, W1, W2. So how do we initialize the weights? If it is neural network, we will anyway initialize, saying that W1 is uniform or Gaussian. Okay, in the range, where to where? 0 to 1 by root.
1
D
by root.
So this is the range in which we initialize the weights. Okay, very good. So we initialize the weights. Fine. This is one step we have done. What is the next step? So any other student? Yeah, Pratyusha, you want to tell? What is the next step? Prasad?
Yes, sir. Choice of activation function, sir.
Okay, we set or decide on the activation function. So assume that I decided a sigmoid activation function. Here, probably some activation function, ReLU activation function. Okay, I decided on them. Okay, then what's the next step? Major Pradeep?
Will incorporate batch normalization as well after the layers.
Okay, so we do batch normalization, fine. But before even batch normalization, what is the, how do we present the data to the network first? We have to
be
We have
on like 3072 cross one form will give it as input.
Yeah, so we should demean this. So here itself, if you are considering mini batch, okay, so you are suggesting batch normalization at the first layer itself. Assume that k equal to 1 to m. So m samples we have taken. Let this be 100 samples. Okay, so then what we are doing is xk hat batch normalization. What we are doing is, see, xk are of dimension. If we see the dimension, so they are n dimension. Say they are d dimension. Okay, and then m samples we have currently, right? And so what we have is m d dimensions and m samples. Okay, so then what we are doing, we are averaging across samples for each of the dimension, right? And that's how batch normalization is being done. So we d remain d, but m remain 1. Okay, so this is how we get the mean and variances, right? I hope you understand this notation, what I'm drawing here. Okay, so what we are doing is essentially we are finding mean and variance across the sample directions. So these are the samples. Okay, and these are the dimension of the feature. Okay, so xk hat now is equal to xk minus mu by sigma, right? Where mu is also d cross 1 and sigma is also d cross 1. Okay, and for each of the sample we are doing k equal to 1 to m. I hope you all understand this notation. This is what we are doing is batch normalization, fine. So at the initial layer, when we are doing batch normalization, the effect is effectively we are demeaning it. Okay, and normalizing the variance. So we can decide on the normalizing the variance aspect if we are interested or not. So this, I think it's up to us. Okay, if we wish to do it, we will do it. Otherwise, we can skip that. right? Okay. So now what's the next thing? So in fact, we can learn this batch normalization at any other layer can also be put as a learning based framework. So where we learn what is the gamma, okay, we want to use and beta we want to use. That means instead of shifting the initial distribution from normal from mu comma sigma to normal 0 comma 1, we can also shift the xk double hat to normal with beta comma gamma. Okay, we can also do that. Okay, fine. Hope you people are clear on this aspect. Okay, and we did it. Assume that we have done it, we have initialized it, and we started giving batch of samples to the network. Then what do you expect? What is the next step? Batch norm is done and presented. Samples to network. Okay, what's the next?
Fixing of hyperparameters like learning rate and number of epochs.
Right, very good. So fixing of the, how do we fix the learning rate? Sorry, eta. And what are the things? Here, if we consider the cost as only as function of one, say this is cost can be either mean square error cost or cross entropy loss function or whatever, right? So assume that for simplicity, we are just considering it as output, okay, minus t whole square. Okay, this is the first loss function. So where this involves W. So the O means O of W because it's a function of all weight elements. But this loss can also be what? There is other term in the loss. There can also be another term in the loss. What is that term? Second term in the loss? What may be a other term in the loss function usually?
Regularization.
Regularizer. Okay, so assume that there is also a regularizer. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to set on the regularization parameter as well. This is regularization parameter. Okay, and this second one is learning parameter. So this is the primary one, and in some sense, this is the secondary one. Okay, so both of them we need to set. These are essentially hyperparameters. There are other parameters like a number of layers, number of neurons, and so on. But I think we will fix as we discussed at the beginning once. Okay, and we did not bother about them later. Now tell me. So initially, what do we expect in this network? So now we are set with say W initialized. Okay, XK mini batch. Presented probably after batch normalization. Okay, and so on. Then what do we expect as the output of the network? Loss is constructed as two terms. One term is actually the network loss, that is probably a function of output. The other one is regularization term. So this is how loss is constructed. Now tell me what essentially may happen. Say assume that for time being, for simplicity, okay, this term is not there at beginning. Okay, then what do you expect the loss to be? So let's for simply, since we know about some loss functions, not essentially about mean square error, let us assume that this is to cross entropy loss. To comment us better. Okay, so L essentially L total is equal to, so we have L cross entropy plus lambda times L regularization. Okay, cross entropy CE I will write. Okay. Right. So now tell me, what is LCE at the beginning? Any comment on this? Yes.
Minus log C, sir.
Minus L and C. Okay, so since we have C classes, it is minus L and C. If we have 10 classes, C equal to 10 implies that this is equal to, is it minus L and C?
LNC, sir.
Logs.
LNC, sir.
LNC. Minus ln 1 by C will come, and this is LNC. And this is equal to 2.3. Okay, something like this, close to 2.3, right? So if we can consider ln 10 here, it is 2.3. So we know that loss has to be around this. Okay, so if it is not around this, then there may be something wrong. So probably the forward pass itself is not very properly going. Okay, this is the first check. Then what do we do? If we now introduce a regularization term, so L, now if we bring in L equal to LCE plus some lambda, we take some lambda times LR, then what will happen to loss? L will be, compared to LCE, what will be the L? Sandeep? Yes, Neha? L will be what?
Sir, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, compared to LCE, which is 2.31, now I added regularization term. Okay, what will happen to the total loss?
It will increase.
Yeah, it will increase. Okay, 2.31 or L will rise. Okay, that's what we expect. So that the initially loss is properly, forward propagation is fine and loss is properly calculated. Okay, that means all the weights are well propagated, and since whatever the operations you are supposed to do in the forward pass, you are doing correctly. Now adding the regularization term, increasing the loss will indicate that the regularization term is also properly added. Okay, so this is the second check. Third thing what we do is, this is fine now, but what we want to do now, we want to take small data. Okay, and when the network is lent with a small data, it is easy to converge, is it not? So what we do is we take actually, say instead of 60,000 samples, you take M equal to say N equal to otherwise say 1,000 samples. Okay, take only small samples, small data. And with this, what we want to do is take only LCE loss and then train the network. What do you think we will observe? Prabhat? What do you think we will observe? Is question clear?
So the last curve should be convergence towards 0.
Class converges. Yeah, you are very low voice.
Last curve should be convergence to 0, sir.
Yeah. So it will
It should.
essentially it will learn very quickly for this small set of samples. Since the number of samples are very small, it will learn quickly. And then the loss, if we consider this is the loss, okay, and then this is with the epochs. So the loss will quickly move to 0. In fact, it will essentially what does it mean? Loss is very quickly moving to 0 means what? It may not completely be 0, but at least it will move to reasonably very quickly. It will fall down and then saturate. What does it mean?
Overfitting.
Yeah, this is on the training loss. This, if you see, this is on train loss. Usually what we do for any training, effective training, we divide the data into train data, validation data, and test data, right? And this may be say 50% if you put here, validation 20% and 30%, something like this, or 60, okay, 20 and 20. Okay, something like that we will split. Okay, so now with the 60% when we train within this 1000 samples, okay, it will quickly training loss will converge. But if you see the validation loss, okay, it will be something like this one. What does this mean? Validation loss is here and training loss is here. What does this gap indicates? Yeah, Srihari? What does this gap indicate between validation loss and training loss? Huh?
It indicates the overfitting, Alexa.
Overfitting. Okay, overfitting means it works very well for the given small data. Okay, for unseen data, it doesn't work. Okay, that's the problem. So is this a good scenario? Is this a good scenario?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, but still this indicates that the network back propagation is happening very well. Okay, and hence you are able to say decrease the loss and so on. So this tests the back propagation. Okay, this infers to us that back propagation is happening well. Okay, these indicates that forward propagation is fine. So previously, whatever we have seen, so those indicates that okay. So now back propagation is also good. So now what we can do? What is the next step? What do you think is the next step? So forward propagation is fine. Okay, and then back propagation is also fine. What do you think is next step? Now let me consider the network itself as a black box. Okay, so this is the neural network for us. Okay, and you have inputs and you have actually labels here. So output I am writing here. Okay, so now what's the next step?
Testing.
Ram
testing.
Kumar, you want to tell? Yeah, Girish, Major Girish.
So we will train with entire data. We can train with the entire data.
Yeah, we need to train the neural network, but are there any other things to fix or decide before we go for full training?
Optimization, sir.
Yeah, what optimization?
Either SGD, stochastic gradient, SGD, sir, stochastic gradient.
So what optimization function should we use? We need to decide, fine. Even before that, so we need to set the hyperparameters, right? So we here with the small network itself, we can set some reasonably coarse like coarse to at the coarse level of hyperparameter setting, or even coarse to fine level of hyperparameter setting. So what if how do we set them is usually we for setting the hyperparameters, we use coarse to fine approach. So assume that we have initially say learning parameter is to be set. The hyperparameter we want to set is learning rate. How do we set it is, say we anyway started with small samples, right? So 1000 samples. what do we do? So usually there are actually search algorithms now in the PyTorch or different TensorFlow software packages itself, for network architectural search, okay, and as well as network search, and some kind of optimization is within there in the algorithm or in the package, okay. But however, usually if we want to set ourselves, what we can do is we can start initially with a little bigger range, say learning parameter usual range. So 10 power minus 1, assume that, okay, or minus 2, or to 10 power minus 7, for example. Assume that this is the broad range in which you can have learning parameter. Okay. So usually for neural networks, it will be 10 power minus 1 or 2 minus 3. Okay. For CNNs, 10 power minus 3 to minus 6, something like that. Okay. These neural networks will have smaller learning parameter or higher learning parameter than CNNs. Okay, because CNNs are deep neural networks where there are several layers and learning happens at each layer and each neuron. So learning parameter also will be smaller. Okay. So we can have this is coarse range of learning parameter. So these are to set the learning parameter. What we do is we search in the logarithmic scale. So 1e minus 1 to 1e minus 7. Okay, so we will not search at all possible grid in between, but we will search over a logarithmic grid. So the search can be done in regular, like uniform grid, okay, or random grid. So if we consider this learning parameter, which is independent or the parameter to be set for us, and regularization parameter also may be there, which is also to be set. So we want to set both of them. So assume that we start with learning parameter being minus 1. Minus 1 means 1e minus 1. Okay. So, and then minus 2. Okay. And then minus 7. Fine. And at regular locations, we take actually 4 possibilities here. Minus 1. 4 possibilities for minus 2. Okay. Minus 3. And so on. So at each of the, for each of the values of lambda and eta, so initially what we do is we set only lambda. For each of the values of lambda, we will search. Okay, we will find out what is the loss. Okay, so corresponding, say for each eta, we can find out LCE initially. Okay, and we see that the loss, whichever is lesser, okay, that we consider as the good learning parameter. That means we consider we set a learning parameter, we train the network, okay, and see the loss that is saturated loss or minimum loss we can achieve with respect to that learning parameter, and that LE we consider it as the loss. So we will see actually the loss for each of the regular grid, and whichever, say if we see that loss CE is minimum for 10 power minus 3. Okay, again 10 power or somewhat closer, 10 power minus 5. Okay, for remaining instances when we set, okay, they are reasonably higher. Then what we do, we again make a fine, like reduce the range for the search of the learning parameter. And now we will search in a fine scale. Okay, so we initially it's a coarse search. Okay. And now it is fine search. So here 10 power minus 3. So we can now consider 0.1 into our say 1 into 10 power minus 3, 0.3 into 10 power minus 3. Okay, and so on up to 0.9 into 10 power minus 3. Okay, again we may consider 0.1 into 10 power minus 4. And so on up to 10.9 into 10 power minus 5 minus 4. Okay, like this. So we may search now in for finer scale, and again we may pick the minimum loss. So that we can consider, say, out of all this 0.5 into 10 power minus 4. Okay, if we consider that leads to LCE as minimum, okay, then we consider this as the learning parameter for us. Okay, this is how we optimize. So this can be done first for learning parameter. Then what we do, we may first find out coarsely which are the learning parameter range. In that learning parameter range, we can also set then the regularization parameter. Okay, and both combination we can see now. So eta also usually will be 10 power minus 1, 2 or 10 power minus 5, assume that. Okay, so in this we will see actually which is the good regularization parameter. Initially we can set on the coarse scale and then fine scale. So if we are doing both together, then we have a 2D grid. Okay, this grid in the regular grid, on the regular grid also we can do grid search. Okay, or we can randomly search. Regular on regular locations or regular values with regular spacing, if we are searching, it is referred to as grid search. For hyperparameters, otherwise we can also search randomly. Randomly means in this range we randomly pick up say 10 values of eta, 10 values of lambda, and their combination we'll try to search. And whichever gives the minimum, or we see not just one minima. Okay, we see actually low loss for 2-3 instances of lambda and eta. Based on that, we set a fine range. Hope this process is clear. And we will search again to get roughly the optimal values of eta and lambda. Is this clear, or any questions here?
Sir, small question. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible now. Good. Ask.
Okay. So, sir, for a particular learning rate, if say some value of lambda is put in a grid search, then can we have for another learning rate a better lambda? Meaning, rather than fixing one parameter at a time, you're fixing 2 parameters here at a time, right? So, which is actually better, fixing 1 at a time or 2 at a time?
Yeah, so they usually do both 2 at a time. So at least in the course search and the even in fine search, learning 1 at a time is fine. But what I would probably what probably I would I think those who are working on these setting the hyperparameters can comment, especially our TAs. But what I would suggest is coarse to fine search we can go to both at a time. After we finally get the one of the parameter, learning parameter to be fixed, or both parameters to a reasonable fine level, then we can fix the learning parameter and then search the other. So initially both simultaneously we can explore to get a reasonable small range in which they can be set. After we get to a very small range or narrow down one of the parameter, then with respect to that parameter, we can set the others. Okay, and then do that alternatively.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that fairly sets the small range initially in the very big space of hyperparameters. And then there in the small range, we are trying to figure out, because each combination also makes a difference. So there we are trying to figure out which is the best combination. Yeah. Fine. So once we set the hyperparameters, then we use these hyperparameters to train the network. Okay, so that's how essentially the learning happens. See, the learning rate. So we want to assess how good is the learning rate. Assume that. And the one way to assess them is, we know like roughly for different learning rates, how the learning happens, okay, in neural network. So for example, if the learning rate eta is very high, okay, then in that case, what will happen? They assume that this is the loss and this is the number of epochs. So if learning rate is very high, what do you expect to happen? The loss will rise, okay, and then it will explode. It will not decrease. If learning rate is say very low, then what do you think will happen? If learning rate is very low, then it will slowly, it will not decrease. The loss will not decrease. Okay, it will slowly decrease. Okay, and then it may then settle. Okay, at some location, or it saturates. So it essentially very slowly settles. Right? And if learning rate is reasonably high, okay, it's not very high, but it is high. Oh, this is for eta low. If learning rate is high, then what do you expect? It's not very high, it's high. So it will quickly settle, okay, and then it will be constant. So in fact, it will be even higher than the learning rate being low. It will quickly settle and then constant. This is eta being high. Right? If eta is good, then how do you expect this to be? This won't settle this fast. This will slowly settle. Okay, and then it becomes as minimum as possible. This is eta good. Optimal. Okay, so hope you people understand this behavior. Why is this like this? Because the eta being very high means the gradient descent term, okay, it will explode. It will move on to the positive to negative side, negative to positive side. In fact, it will explode. No? So in the gradient descent, okay, it will go like this. So the error will explode. Okay. So if it is very high means, then what? If it is high means it will just oscillate like this and then converge. If it is slow means slowly it will, okay, it will, if it is high means it will oscillate and then converge. Okay, if it is slow means what will happen? It slowly, it converges very slowly. Optimum means it will come more closer to this and then converge. I hope you understand these differences. Why are these like this?
Sir, small question.
Yeah, please ask.
Yes. So wouldn't actually low learning rate lead to better convergence if we repeat for more?
Yeah. It can it can lead to good convergence. Only thing is it may also struck at local minima. Also, it depends upon the like the last function or last curve. Okay, if the last curve is something like this. Okay, so say if I use low learning rate, what may happen? It may struck here. It may not even come out of it. Okay, so if it is slightly higher learning rate, okay, there is a possibility of jumping little more. So it may come out and may sit here. But on the other hand, there is also a possibility of for a slightly higher learning rate oscillating around this point. Okay, not being settling here and oscillating around this or even this point. So these two roughly be closer in sense that even though I have plotted with a small gap, these two are roughly closer, but it depends upon which is better in different based on the cost function.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions? Okay. So now let's discuss a little more on the batch normalization front. So I will go through the slides once and come back for the discussion on the batch normalization. So we have, this is referred to as babysitting, okay, for the learning. So the procedure that we have seen, step-by-step procedure, in which the network is it going for like is forward pass going fine, backward pass, back propagation, is it going fine, are the gradients getting updated? Okay, and then how do we set the initial regulation term is working or not? How do we set the hyperparameters from coarse to fine? This is referred to as babysitting the learning process and hyperparameter setting. Okay, this is what we have discussed. So as I discussed in the grid search or in the random search, what we do is say both parameters we do together. And we can see that you can see here that they are noting not just one minima. Okay, in each of the cases, a couple of minima we see. Based on that, we decide the next final range. So if you see, for example, this is the eta, okay, and this is the regulation parameter lambda, and you can see that this is -4, okay, -5, -4, -4, -4. So essentially, it's you can go for fine search in -4, okay, 10 power -4 or -3 to -5. Okay, that's how we will do. And lambda, you can see that -1 and then -1 and -4. So still you have -1 to -5 is the search range for lambda, even for final search here. So and further, if you see this is -4, okay, -4, you may get closer to say 0.5 into 10 power -4. Okay, as you can see here, 0.5 into 10 power -4. This is actually, even though this loss may be a little lesser, but this is actually somewhere different from the other ones. So we may not go for this. Okay, so these will have a better choice. So even though the loss is slightly higher here, we may not go for this. So we may go for the ones where they are frequent. Okay, and then you can also see here the final range is -1 to -2 or -4 maximum. So like that you can go. And you can set actually one of them, say 10 power -4, 0.5 into 10 power -5 into 10 power -4. If you set here, then you can further search for the best lambda, as we discussed now. Okay, so now let us see more on batch normalization. And then we will discuss on the other things. Yeah. Before I discuss, any questions? Okay. So what did we discuss in the last class on batch normalization? Why do we employ batch normalization? So we discussed in the context of neural networks, the importance of batch normalization. We have seen that, say, the usual procedure of taking actually the net value, okay, fully connected layer. After that, we have actually batch normalization layer, okay, and then activation function. Okay, and again, we will have actually fully connected layer. Okay, and then batch normalization. And then we will have actually activations. This is the layered structure for a feed-forward neural network. Right? So why did we have actually batch normalization at each of the layers? Yeah, quick inputs are needed. Okay, should I ask some specific question, specific person? Yeah, Prashant? Pratyusha, you didn't answer before. Tejaswini, Prakash. Yeah, quick answer is expected if you are there in the class. Okay, why we need batch normalization? Yeah, please tell Major Girish.
Sir, before presenting input to activation function, we are bringing input to the range of our activation function.
Right. So you are essentially setting the range. This may be normal from mu comma sigma, any range. Okay, you are setting here the range to a specific range, or n say beta comma gamma, or to a specific range where I wish to set, or to the unit normal range. This will essentially help when we use any activation function. So we are a priori clear, because this activation function essentially takes f of net value, and this is a fixed function. So I know a priori what the operational range of this. Okay, so I can appropriately set the data in that range and give it to the activation function. So this essentially helps in better learning. Okay, so that the output of activation function also I know in which range it will be or whether it is effectively utilized or not. The whole learning of this layer will be unutilized if this activation function throws the output to a saturation range. Okay, let it be towards 0 or completely towards 1. Okay, or towards a dead region. Okay, so that can be set a priori through batch normalization. Okay, so essentially batch normalization helps in as a initialization or whatever sets the range of data before activation. Okay, so because of this, what we can do, we can use actually better learning through large learning parameters. So it can be faster learning, or better and faster learning can happen. Okay, it can also be used as regularization term. Regularization means what? So what essentially we are doing, we are dependence on data is reduced. Because every time we are bringing the data, irrespective of say initially data may be in some completely different range. Through batch normalization, you are bringing to a range where we can easily, or the activation function responds well. Okay, so it acts as a regularization. And it like interdependency on weight initialization, okay, also will be reduced. Okay, fine. So we have seen on how batch normalization is done in a feed-forward neural network. If we have actually data of dimension D, okay, and if you have mini batch of M, so as we have discussed, the batch normalization does this to D only, but this will bring it to mean and variance are calculated across the batch. Okay, batch of samples. Yeah. And using this, we modify X to X hat. Right? So we have seen this. Now for images, how do we do is the question. Say assume that if there is a N, okay, and for which the input is of dimension H cross W, and there are C channels also. Okay, let me. Okay, I assume that there are C channels also. Now what we want to do is we want to bring in now mini batch also into account. So that means M samples are together. So XK, if I see overall dimension, H cross, W cross, C cross, M. Okay, what is this? H cross W is the image dimension, C channels, and M is what? Number of samples in mini batch. Okay, so now when we do batch normalization, so what say essentially if we do similar lines as that of the earlier one, so which is we average across samples, but for each channel we want to keep the same across each channel. We want to do find out the mean and variances. Okay, so this is the dimension we get. So that means so what we do essentially is, if we consider HW together as one dimension, because image overall, whatever we do to rows, we also do for columns. Okay, so HW is the image dimension. Okay, and then the C is for channel dimension. Okay, and then if we or M, so if we do for each okay, so this dimension is for M. Okay, so for different samples, then what we are doing, you are averaging. So let us put C here and M here and C here. Okay, for each channel, what we are doing, we are trying to find out the average of all these things. Okay, and then give the mean and variance. With this mean and variance, what do we do? Xk hat is found by using Xk minus mu by sigma, same operation like we have done before. Okay, so that this is done for each, like previously we have fixed the dimension. For each dimension we have done once, right? So that dimension here is equivalent to each channel. Okay, if for each channel we do, in addition to averaging across samples, we also average across image dimensions to get the mean and variances. Okay, this is what we do in batch normalization when we have image features in CNN. Okay, is this clear? Any questions here? Okay, no, fine. We will stop the discussion here. We will discuss a little more on the batch normalization and then subsequently on the optimizers in the next class. Thank you.